There is a lot of anticipation for Sunday night's season conclusion of HBO's The Last of Us. A middle-aged man and a 14-year-old girl travel through a post-apocalyptic America that has been overrun by zombies that have been infected by a fungus that takes over host brains and makes them into mindless killers in the 9-episode television adaptation of the famous video game. The vast majority of people have perished. The show portrays a grim picture of a fungal pandemic lacking any therapies or effective cures. Of course, it is science fiction. Numerous zombie horror tales attribute the emergence of the living dead or the transformation of humans who are still alive into vicious, hyperactive beasts to some sort of pathogen. The parasitic Ophiocordyceps unilateralis type of fungus, which is known to control ant brains, served as a model for The Last of Us. The zombie fungus in The Last of Us is derived from a species that is linked to the Cordyceps genus. Be at ease. You shouldn't be concerned about dying from the undead fungus. But in recent months, the show's success has prompted the question, could a pandemic brought on by a fungus actually contribute to the extinction of the human race? Not at all absurd, is that query. More infectious fungal species are expanding their habitable range and assaulting unwary hosts as a result of more extreme weather events brought on by climate change and globalization, though they aren't turning their victims into zombies. Additionally, fungi are threatening the food supply by infecting more varieties of plants and crops. For instance, Fusarium fungal toxins are presently harming more than 70% of wheat and cereal crops in the UK. Fungi can now more easily travel to different parts of the globe in search of new hosts thanks to globalization. The fungus that causes white nose syndrome in bats, Pseudogymnascus destructans, developed in Europe, where bats have evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to cope with the fungus. However, it is now quickly spreading throughout North America, where bats have no natural defense against the fungus and are currently dying in their millions. Asiya Gusa, a researcher at Duke University who examines how fungal pathogens adjust to stress in their environment, stated to the Daily Beast that fungi are the primary source of disease for plants. They face more imminent danger as a result of the effects of climate change, which could enable fungi to evolve so that they can destroy plant crops even more effectively, endangering our sources of food. Numerous fungi species infect a wide variety of plants and creatures, making them particularly dangerous. According to D. Carter, professor of microbiology and mycology at the University of Sydney, fungi have this capacity to actively exterminate their hosts, which a virus wouldn't necessarily do. The fungi is unconcerned because it has a new host. Plants and crops are more vulnerable than normal as a result of climate change's higher flooding, rainfall, storms, and other extreme weather events. Even though antifungal agents could safeguard these plants and crops, Carter noted, there are other unfavorable side effects. Antifungal medications lack specificity and also destroy the helpful fungi that support the growth of plants and other ecosystem members. Other plants are also at risk because fungal pathogens have the power to completely alter ecosystems and terrain. Myrtle rust, Ostropochynia side, which affects eucalyptus and other native plants in Australia, is an increasing issue. Myrtle rust has the potential to completely alter the environment and kill large trees, according to Carter. Every now and then, she continued, a new crop pathogen emerges and everyone becomes extremely concerned, but typically the scientists are on top of it. Researchers can create pathogen-resistant crops, but this takes time and does not halt famine or food scarcity in the interim. Unexpectedly, the antifungals sprayed on plants and crops have actually assisted species that infect people in evolving resistance to these medications. This is alarming because efforts to win the fungal arms race have had an unexpected outcome. The most prevalent genus of pathogenic fungi to affect people is Cryptococcus. Lung injury and brain swelling may result from it. Additionally, Cryptococcus has a strong ability to subvert the defense system. In nature, they come across things like amoeba that attempt to engulf them, said Carter. The fungi have already figured out how to avoid amoeba because they resemble macrophages, which are immune cells found in mammals that also function by engulfing pathogens. This pathogen becomes even more hazardous when antifungal tolerance is factored in. Although immune-compromised people are typically infected by Cryptococcus, more healthy people are beginning to contract these illnesses as well. Cough, chest discomfort, headaches, nausea, vomiting, light sensitivity, and confusion are among the signs and symptoms of Cryptococcus gattii. However, the mortality rate is also significant, ranging from 13 to 33%. In addition to surgery to extract the fungus from the lungs, brain, and spinal cord, the illness must be treated for at least 6 months with intravenous and oral antifungal medications. Cryptococcus gattii was primarily thought of as a tropical pathogen until lately. However, following an epidemic on Vancouver Island in 1999, it has appeared in Oregon and Washington state. The American Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had documented 96 instances overall by the year 2012. By 2015, British Columbia, Canada, recorded nearly 400 cases. It has been difficult to determine how many individuals were infected during this outbreak because many could be asymptomatic. The shocking aspect of this outbreak, in Goose's opinion, was how many otherwise healthy people were impacted. Presently, the illness affects a number of people in the Pacific Northwest each year. Even if a harmful fungus's contagious behavior is well understood, eliminating it will still be challenging. Fungi can produce shielding spores that stay in the lungs after an original infection has been treated and wait for a chance to spread another infection. Goose claims that they can continue to adapt and evolve while hibernating in their spore state, which makes it simpler for them to acquire resistance to antifungals. Since there aren't many antifungal medications available, the danger of antifungal resistance is increased. Any antifungal medication has the drawback of being anti-human. In the tree of life, fungi and animals are grouped very tightly together and are separated from plants, bacteria, and everything else, according to Carter. It follows that they have a metabolism comparable to ours, which makes it challenging to develop effective new antifungals. The strongest antifungal agent would also be the most toxic to people because medications that interfere with fungal metabolism have negative effects on humans as well. While developing vaccines against specific fungal pathogens has been attempted by researchers as a means of preventing infection, this endeavor has not yet been successful. And given the mounting evidence that COVID-19 infections may impair people's immune systems and make them more vulnerable to other diseases, now may be a better moment than ever for a fungal pandemic. Aspergillus is one illustration. You are already aware of this fungus because it is so common that it is difficult to avoid breathing in its spores. Although it won't hurt a healthy person, Aspergillus can cause fever, chest pain, and coughing when it infects the lungs and sinuses in the absence of a strong immune response. In extreme instances, it might even spread to other body parts and need to be surgically removed. Mucormycosis, a fungus that can be found in the earth and on decaying vegetation, is another example of an unavoidable fungus. Spores can attack people who have compromised immune systems by entering through the sinuses, lungs, or open wounds. It has the same ability to propagate throughout the body as Aspergillus. Antifungal medications must be infused intravenously as part of the treatment, and diseased tissue must be surgically removed. For these viruses, COVID-19 has been a blessing. Cryptococcus is more of an issue in sub-Saharan Africa, where the incidence of HIV/AIDS is higher. Goose stated, they simply lack the resources or the supplies to treat people efficiently. Therefore, the elevated mortality rates linked to Cryptococcus infections are common. These nations would also be hardest hit if a new fungal pathogen appeared and began to affect food sources. Fungi are still a problem all over the globe, in part because the field is underfunded. Fungal pathogen research receives less than 1.5% of the world's financing for infectious diseases, despite the fact that it causes 1.5 million deaths annually. Even though fungal diseases kill more people than tuberculosis, they receive much more money overall, according to Goose. Because we lack effective surveillance and diagnostic instruments, it is more difficult to trace the spread, incidence, and identities of infected people. As a consequence, patients might get the wrong kinds of treatments, like antibiotics. Mortality might be decreased by increasing awareness of fungi and by giving doctors diagnostic tools. However, due to a dearth of research, there is also much about fungi that we do not understand. What actually poses a threat? What exactly is the spread? We need to conduct more study in that area, Goose said. Building up resistance against the fungi may be facilitated by more environmentally friendly farming methods, such as abandoning plain monocultures. Growing a single species or strain of crop in a single area is known as monoculture. 50% of all agricultural fields globally are planted with corn, wheat, rice, or soybeans. Due to the lack of genetic variety within these monocultures, these crops are more susceptible to being wiped out by pests, pathogens, or climatic changes, which not only degrades and depletes the soil of nutrients but also increases the risk of crop extinction. Reduced fertilizer use, fewer soil disturbances, and multiple crops planted in a field are all examples of regenerative farming practices that could inhibit the growth of pathogenic fungi. Nobody is worried about a lethal fungus turning people into zombies like in The Last of Us, but pathogens destroying the food supply may keep scientists up at night.